Mr. Heat, are we almost ready?
Can you hear me, Gloria?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Well, I lost the video, but I'll try again.
Before we bring this meeting to order, I'd like to read a declaration by the governor. On March 13, 2020, Governor Greg Abbott issued a declaration of emergency as a result of the COVID-19 virus outbreak. Subsequently, on March 16, 2020, pursuant to the authority granted in the declaration, Governor Abbott temporarily suspended the application of certain provisions of the Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, in order to permit telephonic open meetings. This was an effort to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 virus by avoiding large group meetings while still ensuring continued governmental operations and preserving transparency in the decision-making process. Pursuant to this authority, Tarrant County College District gave notice of its intent to conduct today's work session meeting as a telephonic and video conference open meeting. 3 trustees will participate in person for this meeting: myself, Conrad Heed, Mr. Bill Greenhill, and Mr. Kenneth Barr. Dr. Diane Patrick, Ms. Teresa Ayala, and Dr. Michael Evans will participate via video conference or telephonically. I'll now call the work session meeting of the Board of Trustees for October 8th, 2020 to order. Public comment? No public comment. Item 3 will be review of board business items, and we'll take a look at the meetings of the minutes of the September 10th work session meetings. Does anybody have any comment on that? Suggestions? Questions? There being none, we'll go to B, which is the minutes for the Board of Trustees meeting on September 17th. Are there any comments, suggestions? There being none, item C, the public hearing on a tax increase minutes of September 17th. Are there any questions, suggestions, comments? There being none, we'll go to item 4, which is review of proposed consent agenda items for board meeting on October 15th, 2020. Item A, Carol Bracken. Consideration and approval of resolution granting authority to the Chancellor until January 31st to establish procedures necessary to facilitate the continuity of the district's operation to combat the spread of the COVID-19 virus.
When did the previous authority expire, or did it expire? This month? Okay. Yeah, September. All right, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you up there.
Carol.
Good afternoon, trustees. This afternoon, you're being asked to consider an extension of the authority that you previously granted to the Chancellor during this COVID-19 pandemic situation to allow him to make emergency decisions particularly contract decisions, without getting your approval. However, as you requested, and as we've incorporated in this resolution, we've put in a statement that you be notified every month at your board meeting as to the decisions undertaken in connection with this authority and presented with the opportunity to ratify them. So we've asked that we continue the authority through January 31st of 2021. Are there any questions?
Questions, comments?
Thank you.
Item 4B, consideration and approval of the annual renewal of proctoring services from Proctoring, Inc. in the amount of $525,000. Dr. LeBlanc.
No, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yes, good afternoon. This is a consideration and approval of the annual renewal of proctoring services from Proctoring, Inc. in the amount of $525,000. This board action will authorize the second renewal for an estimated 35,000 users at approximately $15 per user. It is anticipated that this high level of usage will continue with remote and online learning in spring of 2021. A commensurate portion of the fee will be assigned to the CARES Act funding because of the transition to the majority of the instruction being online. And I'm open for any questions that you may have.
Yeah. Last year, I think we had one problem with the face recognition, and I think we don't have that in this contract, as I understand.
So, yes, thank you for asking that question. We agreed in September to turn off the artificial intelligence feature of this software, and we are no longer using that, but we do use the proctoring system.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any further questions, comments?
Hello, this is Teresa. Mr. Heed, if I may ask a question?
Certainly.
Thank you. Dr. LeBlanc,
Yes, ma'am.
can you tell me about what sort of feedback we've received on this particular program since we've been using it? Who's providing feedback? Are we getting feedback from the students, the faculty, and what has just been the overall feedback on it?
So basically, this is like most products for online proctoring of exams. And the mostly TCC Connect folks reviewed the products that were available, and this was the best of what is available today. We do see a significant increase in the utilization of this by the faculty, which tells us that the faculty in general are appreciating the product and are able to use it well. In terms of the students, we do have multiple ways for the students to give us feedback. When a student has issues, both Proctorio and our own help desk are available for them to answer questions. What we've learned for the most part is that the students are not always in the ideal situation for using a camera in general. So they may be taking a test in their closet or in a bedroom somewhere with poor lighting, and that always impacts the availability, always impacts a camera's ability to capture the individual well. And that's why we dismantled the artificial intelligence. We have other ways of recognizing, acknowledging who the student is.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll move on to item 4C, consideration and approval of purchase with Assessment Technology Institute, ATI, for the fall of 2020 nursing cohort graduating in the spring of 2022, the amount of $158,205. Dr. Madison.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees. The Division of Nursing seeks approval to purchase 2 ATI software products, Real Life and Nurses Touch, that provide a bridge between classroom learning and real-life clinical experience. Both ATI products supplement simulation-based clinical experience or clinical education in the second year by providing web-based opportunities for TCC nursing students to practice their clinical and decision-making skills through varied real-life situational experiences without compromising the patient's well-being. Both products include video case studies, virtual simulations, and nationally normed NCLEX-style item assessments. And these products are also particularly helpful in addressing inconsistencies in learning opportunities at the various clinical sites. And that's very important distinction there. Now, by comparison, the Elsevier software that the board approved back in August primarily supplements the didactic or classroom-based instruction to be distinguished from the simulation-based instruction that this particular software, ATI, will support. And it includes quizzes, interventions, and also allows students to remediate as necessary. Nursing faculty use reports and data from both ATI and Elsevier to help them make informed decisions about the nursing curriculum or to develop academic interventions to support the success of our nursing students. So just a little bit of information about both products and the distinction in terms of the groups, the targeted groups that they support.
Do we have any data that shows how effective this software is?
Yes, we are currently working with institutional research on establishing a report. And in that particular report, our preliminary findings to date show that with high usage of the software, there's a positive association between the use of the software and actual grades or academic performance. In this case, they've been looking at the performance, excuse me. In this case, they've been looking at the performance in targeted courses where they utilize the actual software. So we do have some data. It's preliminary right now, but we are seeing, what we expected to find is that the more you use the software, the supplement, the better the outcomes in the course or the better the outcomes on the NCLEX exam. And we're looking at those two as our key performance, those two items as our key performance indicators, success in the course and also success on the NCLEX as well, which is the licensure examination.
What is the graduation rate of our nursing students?
Yes, right now, 86% of our students graduate from our program.
Any other questions, Ms. Ayala?
Yes, Mr. Heath, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Madison. What is the state average? How do we compare with the state average versus?
For graduation?
Or the numbers, yes.
For graduation, we're about the same. We're on par. As a matter of fact, for our graduation, because we have the largest ADM program in the state of Texas, our rates tend to be higher than the state average in terms of graduation.
What about in terms of testing and what the scores are us against versus the state?
Versus the state, we have, the last time we checked, our NCLEX pass rate, TCC ADN, was about 87%. In comparison to the state average, we're talking about 89%. So a little less than the state average, but also higher than the national average, which is at 85% this past administration of the NCLEX.
Okay, so hopefully something like these tools will help to bridge that gap a little bit more and increase those scores. Okay.
Indeed.
Excellent. Thank you.
No, thank you for the question.
Do we make any effort to help the students that don't graduate to get them re-enrolled? And do we make any effort in that regard at all?
We have ways, as a result of the pathways work, we try to reconnect students. Let's say, for instance, nursing is not necessarily the pathway that a student can take based on their performance in first year courses, performance on skills courses or what have you. There are strategies in place to redirect students based on their entrance. So students may still want to be in the nursing, in the healthcare profession. It may not be, nursing may not be the profession for that student. But we have advisors in place, et cetera, to steer, refocus students based on their strengths, as demonstrated on various assessments that they take throughout the course of the program.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be a shame to waste 2 years of education and not try to get them in some other allied health field.
Well, we give them opportunities to readmit, to remediate, to refresh, or what have you. That's all built into the program.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, discussion?
Yes, this is Teresa. I was going to ask Dr. Madison, can you tell us what the placement is like? I mean, how soon our nurses are placed into a position, and how are we, kind of along the lines of what Mr. Heed was asking. So if there's a need for remediation, how soon do we engage? How do we engage? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, in terms of initial placement, there's the HESI exam, and that HESI is used as part of the placement. It's also used to determine whether or not we need to address specific skills depending on their scores on the HESI. You can't pass it or fail it. It's a placement or a diagnostic, just to give us a sense of where the student is in terms of on a particular item or on particular skills. Further along in the curriculum, that's where these tools, this ATI, the software used by faculty as they take quizzes throughout the semester or work with these various educational tools, it gives just real-time information to faculty so that they can make quick adjustments either to the curriculum or intervene or provide interventions for students. So let's say, Trustee Ayala, that a student is struggling in a particular course based on the information that we're finding as it relates to a faculty member's review of reports from either of these educational tools. Then what happens is that student is referred to academic support programs within the actual division. Some of those programs, some of you have heard of PONS. Some of those programs, we have an academic success center in the nursing division as well. So we have quite a bit of resources that we can funnel students to make sure first of all, to give them an opportunity to succeed. And that's by design of the program, and faculty are involved in that, but also the nursing leadership as well.
How many of these students transfer into the BSN program, and how do we coordinate with not only the other schools that give the BSN, but the online courses that are also included, and eventual placement in the hospitals, et cetera?
There are individuals, and a few pieces there. In terms of the RN to BSN program, we have the pleasure of enjoying a number of partnerships with four-year institutions, and that's a protocol and a process all within itself. And the nursing leadership, they work hand in hand with the partners, our four-year partners, to ensure that pipeline. So we have partnerships with Tarleton and other four-year institutions in terms of the RN to BSN component. In terms of clinical placement, we actually have coordinators, faculty coordinators, and we also have an administrative coordinators who kind of handle that process. And it involves quite a bit of collaboration, conversations, preparation, or what have you, as we prepare to enter into an agreement with various hospitals who will allow our students to complete their clinical experience on site at those various hospitals. A number of individuals are involved in that process. We work with the legal team, we work with the provost, et cetera, to make sure that all our I's are dotted, our T's are crossed, because it is an agreement that we enter into with the hospital. Hopefully I've answered your question.
And one more thing, if a nursing student graduates, they get their certificate, their RN, and they transfer to a four-year school, I would assume we'd get success points as we would with another student. Does that work the same with nursing students?
I would have to look into that.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Mr. Heed, I've got a question. This is Michael Evans. If you're asking, do we receive success points when students are at four-year institutions?
Yeah.
No. Once they leave us, we do not receive success points for their ultimate educational success.
Okay. Dr. Evans?
Yes, sir. I'm just asking for an approximate number. Dr. Madison, will you have, or do you have, an approximate number of hospitals that our students get the opportunity, where our students get the opportunity to practice in, just here in the Metroplex? Just an approximate is fine. I'm just curious.
So if I'm hearing the question correctly, we want to know how many students are placed in jobs upon graduation?
No, sir. The number of hospitals in the area that our students get the opportunity to practice in, while they're still students. But do you have an approximate number of the hospitals in the area? Just an approximate is fine.
I don't have the approximate number in my head, but I can assuredly say that if there's a hospital that you drive by within Tarrant County, we have students placed there, but I would have to get the exact number in terms of the hospitals, but also the departments within those hospitals count as well.
Okay. Well, I don't need to know the actual number or even the hospitals. I was just curious in our level of partnership. If it's like the Texas TRH hospitals, the Methodist, but it sounds like you're saying that we're in just about all of those.
Yes, and even we just recently had a conversation with the CEO at the hospital in Mansfield. So we not only as hospitals open, we're also engaged in conversations with the appropriate personnel on site to also create clinical experience opportunities, even at new establishments as well. And that's an ongoing conversation between the dean. We have a number of program coordinators, clinical site coordinators who are always having conversations with their counterparts at the hospitals. In this case, it would be in most cases, it's the chief nursing officer or the individual who is designated to facilitate clinical partnerships with higher education institutions.
Yeah. Do we have any MOUs established with any of these facilities whereby maybe we get feedback on how our students are doing, or maybe some improvements we need to make in our curriculum, et cetera?
Yeah, that's an ongoing conversation between the clinical site coordinators from TCC and those who coordinate the work at the hospitals. So that's an ongoing discussion. It's not necessarily sporadic. It's just it's built into what the relationship looks like to ensure that our students are learning what they're supposed to learn as part of that clinical learning experience.
Yeah. Mr. Barr?
Dr. Madison, and we may be ranging a little wide on this particular issue about the nursing program. But I had a lady the other day tell me that her daughter, who is a second-year nursing student, was not going to school this semester because the next thing she needed to take it was a biology course or something like that, a biology lab, and we were not offering that at this time. Is that correct?
I wouldn't know in terms of what we're offering. But I certainly will look into it. Our Vice President of Academic Affairs and I will look into that.
I'd like to know whether that's accurate, and if it is accurate, when will we be offering that?
Well,
of course,
first of all, I need to understand the actual question, because most of the biology is offered prior to admittance to the program. So I don't know, is it usual for a second-year student to be taking biology, a prereq, during their second year because it's required for admission?
If you'd ask somebody to reach out to me. And
I just want to make sure I have the right information.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Mr. Heath.
Go ahead.
This is Teresa. I just would like to ask if at some point we could coordinate with the Chancellor about maybe having a presentation a little bit more in depth into the nursing program, particularly with all of the changes that I'm sure that they're experiencing as well. If that's something that we could explore at a work session.
I have a lighter comment. Some of us are older folks than others. I've had several procedures more lately in various places, and in every single one of them, I've had a delightful conversation with a TCC nurse. So congratulations. At least as far as I'm concerned, they are doing a marvelous job, and they've all talked about how wonderful the education they get in with our nursing program. That's all.
Any further questions, discussion?
Well,
Thank you.
This is Teresa. To that point, I just want to let you know that I know that I've also heard of several that feel that they have been very well prepared as well. So my congratulations to the staff on that.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And enlightening, a lot more than what we anticipated. Dr. Menace.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 4D. Consideration and approval for renewal of a 3-year Adobe Enterprise Team License Agreement, ETLA, with JourneyEd.com, Inc. for $623,625, the annual cost of which is $207,875. Mr. Bob Pacheco.
Yes, this request is for a 3-year contract to purchase Adobe Professional, Adobe Sign, which is an e-signature solution for the PDF documents that we do, as well as their Creative Cloud application. This provides a whole host of applications used by our students, staff, and faculty. We purchased this through JourneyEd, which is an affiliation with the Texas Community College Teachers Association, which is where we get bulk purchase prices. And I'm open to any questions.
Questions, discussion? Ms. Ayala?
Yes, I do. This is Teresa. Thank you very much, Mr. Pacheco. Can you tell us, is this one of those applications that is being evaluated also as part of that exercise of going and looking at all of our softwares, our platforms, and moving to cloud? Is this part of that as well?
Pretty much all software, unless it has a specific purpose, would be always evaluated through the software rationalization project. In this situation, Adobe is probably the standard that we compare everything else to.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Any further questions, discussion? If not, we'll move on to item 4E, consideration and approval of the first 1-year contract extension option with Texas Industrial Security, Inc., TIS, for armed and unarmed security services in the amount of $678,648, not to exceed. Ms. Alanis.
Yes. So 2 years ago, the board authorized a contract with TIS to have armed security guards at certain locations, which include Alliance, as well as the Opportunity Center, and they provide 24/7 coverage. In addition, we do use some of the unarmed security services in our video monitoring center here at TR that monitors the district as a whole. And the intent is to, in a more cost-effective way, supplement the police officer services that we have. I will tell you that we are in the process of evaluating the complement of officers and overtime and security guards and so on right now. And by the end of the year, hope to make a recommendation about whether to continue with this firm or other alternatives that may be available. So although you are approving a 1-year extension, which is what the contract contemplated, we do have the ability to terminate early in the event that we make a decision around the management of those services.
Any questions, discussion? Thank you. While you're up there, we'll proceed on to item 5A. This is 5 is a review of proposed individual action item for board meeting on October 15th, 2020. Item A is consideration and approval of contract with Hahnfeld, Hoffer, and Stanford for design services on a district-wide basic and provisional classroom upgrades in the amount of $299,831.36.
So this one and the next one are related to what we've been mentioning to you, that through the ILI principle, they had developed classroom standards for us to plan our classroom renovation program around. And in our development of the 5-year capital plan, we've actually been working on a multi-year plan to upgrade 50 classrooms per year. They fall into 3 categories, or actually 4 categories. So you've got basic and provisional, which are some of the older classrooms in some instances that might have some bigger challenges, but also and may not accommodate the full technology packages long term. In addition, we've got the formal learning spaces and the technology, the Tech Plus classrooms that will get a fuller treatment. We evaluate them based on how they're used, where they're located, and the availability of faculty who have been through the Learning Academy to use the tools effectively and so on, to make those decisions about the sequencing of those renovations. So between the 2 of these board memos, we are authorizing the design of 50 classrooms. The good news is that with the development of a multi-year plan for these, we're able to, in one action, plan for the design of all of them at once. So it's a contract that will allow us to get that work done in a more efficient manner.
Questions, discussion? Ms. Ayala, you're thinking.
I am thinking. So these are existing classrooms. These are not going to be part of the new buildings. Is that correct, Ms.
That is
Alanis?
correct. In fact, you won't really see any at Northwest or very many at Southeast, because they'll be getting the larger renovation treatments. And so they really are clustered at the other campuses that may not have as extensive of renovation happening through the bond program.
Okay. And just high level, can you just kind of say give me an example of what a renovation would look like for a classroom, just so I'll kind of in my mind envision what that means? Because I'm thinking physical. I'm thinking of a physical change, but maybe it's just, I don't know, maybe it's lighting. That's why I just want to kind of get an idea.
It's really all of the above. So they look at the classroom and determine what a complete effort would be to make sure that it's meeting the standards that we want our students to be able to participate in. The differences generally are perhaps the size doesn't allow what we would normally, what a full-blown classroom might dictate. And also there's a range of technology that might happen in those classrooms depending on how they're used and where they're located.
Okay. So when we talk about technology, is that actual like hardware? Is that software? Or is it both?
Well, it can be both, and perhaps Dr. Blankenbaker wants to come up and join and talk a little bit about the standards that were established through ILI, and so she's great. Available.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
So members of the Board of Trustees, Trustee Ayala, thank you for asking that question. So a little bit of background about ILI. ILI stands for the Integrated Instructional Learning Environments Advisory Panel. And this panel consists of over 20 individuals across the college. And we have several focus teams that we utilize based on the particular topic. So that team worked on ways in which we can meet students where they are. And we at Tarrant County College have selected the pedagogy of engaged learning as the driver in helping us influence what kind of learning environments we want to create at Tarrant County College. So the advisory panel came up with the components that Susan alluded to, both in the type of technology and then also the type of spaces and space configurations that we want to propose to Tarrant County College. So we put all of those functional components on paper, and those were approved by the cabinet. So for space, these are the components that we are recommending. Flexible, movable furniture, no classroom hierarchy, easily accessible technology, dry erase walls, mobile lecterns, student tables and chairs, mobile dry erase boards, ability to move around, and stimulating graphics. And all this to support and advance engaged learning. For technology, what we want to do is bring engaged learning to life by building flexibility in the content display, right? And so when a student is learning and needing to be engaged with the content, we want to make sure that we're eliminating classroom hierarchy, and a student has to look over another student in order to see the content display. We want flexible control of technology so that no matter where the student is in that particular classroom, he or she can access technology. The same way with the instructor. The instructor should not be tethered to a particular podium in order to be the sage on stage, to be teaching from one area of the classroom, like I am talking, right? And so in an engaged learning classroom, I should be able to move around the room, to be able to have my technology with me, and to be able to have students follow me in that particular room. We also want the portability of classroom content so that the classroom content isn't just in one area of the classroom. It is in a minimum of 2 outputs in a basic classroom. But as we go up the categories of what we want those classrooms to look like, the ETLA classroom will have 4 to 8 outputs so that the content will be displayed around the room. We also want technology to help our students better collaborate with each other through the technology. And so we're making available MS Teams for the classroom where they can have collaborations through that technology, and that way promoting the critical teamwork skills that we want our students to cultivate so that they become more work ready and world ready. So those are the broad overview of the functional components that we have designed for these classrooms and the schedule of the adaptive redesign of those classrooms. Because we have over 500 classrooms at Tarrant County College, 520 to be exact, right? About 520. So we are going to be coming back to you on a regular basis with approvals of these 50 per year.
Thanks, Serena. I'll also add, in the my annual goals report that you received this week, in Appendix 2, I think it is, the ETLA classroom standards are in there, both a narrative and schematic. So you will see a lot what just Zarina narrated, you'll be able to actually see examples of.
I've asked this question before, sure. And in regard to, we had a kind of an overview of all this a long time, several months ago or a year or two ago. Is this open classroom way just a trend, or do you, what I'm asking is this kind of classroom method shown some success in other colleges, or this, I just want to make sure this is just not a trend. Like back in the day, we went through open classrooms and so forth, and this is not like that, I'm sure, but will we be going back to the other way?
Yes, you're asking a very good question. And this is the research and the benchmarking that the advisory panel conducted over a period of 6 months before we identified engaged learning. And part of this, we called it active learning, but we think engaged learning is a better, more comprehensive terminology that also encompasses, for example, culturally responsive curriculum, et cetera. So this is a curriculum that was developed by faculty based on the neuroscience of learning, right, for the current student who may not have the type of attention span or learns in the traditional way you and I might have learned, right? And so this is exactly what we want at Tarrant County College. We want to meet students where they are. We are actually using science and research to anchor the methodology that we are now training faculty to be using. And many of our faculty are already familiar. Yes, we have an Engaged Learning Institute that we are launching in mid-October, which will be a virtual, so that faculty have the opportunity to also receive this training during this environment. And we will have multiple options, virtual, hybrid, and online, based on the learning style of the faculty member.
So each faculty member who has been teaching as you are speaking now will have to do this new kind of teaching, which is better. How's the faculty?
Right. So right now we are concentrating on the coalition of the willing. We are invitational in our ask of our faculty, because our faculty are professionals. And I know that as professionals, they, when they hear and see from their colleagues the positive results that their colleagues are getting, they themselves will embrace the idea of participating.
Okay.
Will we be, as we install these new classrooms and new methods of teaching, will we be gathering data to show how much better the students fare?
Yes, we are. And right now, what we're doing is using an evaluation component for the Engaged Learning Institute. And we're also going to be utilizing indirect, and when I say indirect, because it is very difficult in an experimental design to isolate that one variable, which is the training that the faculty member would be receiving, right, as that variable that makes the direct impact on the success of a student. So right now, we are evaluating the professional development, because during our first year, it was a prototype. In our second year, we've improved it, we've expanded it, and we will be looking at data such as student engagement, student retention, and student completion of the students who are in the classrooms where faculty are utilizing engaged learning techniques.
Yeah, I think we'd be interested in seeing a presentation on that when you have you have good data.
And our faculty would be delighted to share their work with you.
Thank you. Any further questions, discussion?
What is the difference, Susan, between A and B in section 5A and B? What's the difference? That's just...
They're just two separate design contracts for the two different tiers of classrooms. And so the first one is the basic and the provisional, which are the ones that perhaps don't have physical attributes that allow them to be a full-blown formal learning space. They may have some limitations in terms of size or what have you. And so they're just two separate design contracts for that purpose.
Okay, separate design.
That's correct.
Let me read 5B.
I'll read it, but
I know, but I mean for our
I'm sorry.
audience.
I thought we were doing it in combination.
No.
Point of order.
5B, consideration and approval of contract with Hahnfeld, Hoffer, and Stanford for design services on district-wide formal learning and formal learning tech plus classroom upgrades in the amount of $176,752.82.
Yes, and so I think we've covered the content of that. This one is the classrooms with the full formal learning space attributes. Okay.
Any further questions, discussion? We'll move on to item 5C, consideration and approval of contract with Carrillo Engineering for parking improvement design services on Trinity River and Trinity River East campuses in the amount of $154,915.50.
So you may recall that in 2019, there was a study done of the parking garage here at TR, and the problem that they were trying to solve was a lot of the queuing that happens at peak hours and the availability of parking for students, the way the floors are currently allocated between students and faculty and staff. And the results of that study indicated that the student areas were almost maxed out in terms of utilization, whereas the staff and faculty areas were about 35% occupancy typically. And so what this exercise will do is it will provide the design work to change where the controlled access is. It will also look at entrances and exits in terms of functionality for lanes at peak times, entering or exiting to help provide some of that congestion relief. It will also provide lighting improvements and that kind of thing. It is in anticipation also of being able to accommodate the 200 plus employees that will be moving to TR with the renovation of the tower here and the evacuation of the MOC building. In addition, this covers design for TREC. That's an area that has some particular challenges at peak hours in terms of parking for students, and there have been a lot of complaints there. There's an additional parking lot that was acquired to the north that is not currently striped, and there's some improvements that can be made to where the exits and entrances are and the flow of traffic, and get rid of some of the crossroads and that kind of thing to add some parking spaces to make that function more effectively to serve that building as well. So this is the design work for the results of that study that was done.
Does this also involve parking on the other side of Henderson, on the west side of Henderson?
It does not. They've assumed that parking over there is not necessary. We've got sufficient space within the parking garage here. However, it tends to be more convenient to some students depending on where their class is located. And so there aren't any improvements planned for that particular facility at the moment.
Any other questions, discussion? We'll move on to item 5C, consideration approval of, 5D, consideration and approval of contracts with multiple vendors for the building services power plant chiller and cooling tower upgrade project at the Northwest Campus in the amount of $3,166,918.22.
Yeah, and I've got a slide deck actually that staff should be pulling up. And so this is the ongoing effort that you've seen and approved many items for over the years related to upgrading our infrastructure. And this is part of the bond-funded projects that are currently planned. Several board members actually participated in a tour last week where we had the opportunity to see some other examples of heating and cooling and that kind of thing. So we thought it would be a good opportunity as you're looking at this particular item to provide some context about the improvements that have been made district-wide in the recent past and the reason that a chiller upgrade is recommended here. So next slide. So next slide, please, sorry. So what I wanted to start with is that TCC does have building standards that were adopted back in 2014 and are updated regularly to cover what our expectations of how our facilities will be constructed and perform. And they do have specific energy efficiency systems that are prescribed by that. And the LEED Silver resiliency is what it's comparative to. We will spend some more time at our upcoming workshop at the end of this month talking about all of this as a little bit more context, but I wanted you to be aware of that. Back when these were adopted, the board at the time challenged staff to some progressive goals about reducing our energy use intensity scores. And essentially at the time, I don't know that there was consistent investment in some of that infrastructure improvement. And so the thought was, how do we make it pay for itself by reducing our annual expenses associated with energy consumption? And so at the time, the challenge was we were at 119 EUI, which is a measure of your energy usage per square footage, which allows you to compare across buildings and organizations in terms of how you're performing. And they challenged the staff to make improvements that would reduce that down to 95. At this point, we're actually down at 83. So there's been some good reductions. But the thing I'd like to highlight is that our electricity and natural gas use has actually declined over the last 10 years from $9.2 million to about $5 million. So they've been making some substantial headway in that area. We're comparing to fiscal year 2019, even though we had really good results in 2020, but 2020 is a little bit distorted because of the closure of many of the facilities during the spring and summer. And so that wasn't really a fair comparison, although the results were obviously good with a reduction in energy usage. So next slide. So this gives you just a graphic representation over 10 years of what our energy usage has been. And you can see that with the investment that the college has made in a lot of the infrastructure, you can start to see the improvements that happened. One of the things I will point out is that if we looked up, and we've got some more analysis to do to see how we compare to other organizations, but NACUBO, which is the National Association of Community College Business Officers, I believe, something to that effect. They indicate that a typical or average, I should say, EUI for community colleges is 84. And we are at 83, so we're sort of middle of the pack. But one thing I will point out is with the improvements that are happening, particularly at Northwest, which is, obviously very aged and has a lot of challenges with its buildings, we're going to continue to see improvements in that as we implement the capital program that you all have approved. The other thing, and Walt's here to help me if I get into any trouble on some of the technical details, but the other thing that they've done in the last few years too is that they've had some continuous commissioning services where there's a regular evaluation, not only when we implement new equipment, but as we're using equipment to make sure that it's tuned to be meeting our needs and also to be running and operating effectively and reducing our energy costs. The next slide actually shows you what the energy expenditures have been like. And one thing I'll point out is back in the 2011-2012 time period, staff made an effort to enter into gas contracting with the Texas General Land Use Office so that they could get the benefit of the volumes that are generated statewide to get better pricing. And at that time, they were able to reduce our rate per kilowatt hour down by 33%. And so you can see the big reduction that happened at that time as well. But we've had the continued improvements that have been happening with the infrastructure implementation that's been happening since then. Next slide. So in terms of what we select as a college, the philosophy has been to implement leading edge chilled and heating water production and distribution technology. So we adopted that as a building standard a number of years ago, and that's not something that you change regularly. Once you make a decision to invest in a system like that, it really is your standard going forward to continue to grow in a campus environment. And so that decision was made a number of years ago, and it's preferred also in a multi-campus environment. One of the things that a number of us saw on the tour was a geothermal example that we'll talk about here in just a minute at an elementary school where there's a singular building and that kind of thing. And so, but the industry standard for large multi-building campus settings is using the technology that we've been implementing here. Next slide, please. And part of the reason for that is that we are getting results that we think are outstanding. It's flexible, it's durable over time, it's uniform between campuses, and so in terms of maintaining and having staff to support that, it allows ease of maintenance, and also it's cost-effective redundancy because we do keep our systems for obviously a very long time, and so that's important. But one of the things I'll point out as well on the next slide is that there have been really significant investments at Northwest Campus in particular, and I won't go through reading all of them, but it gives you a sense that we've replaced a lot of the plant equipment over time, as well as a lot of the piping that provides the water to the facilities for their purpose. Most of the components that have been replaced in the last few years are upwards of 50-year useful life. In some instances, smaller than that, depending on what the components are. One of the things that we heard on the tour at Burleson ISD last week as well was that a lot of the bang for the buck that they've gotten with their geothermal system is the ability to avoid having rooftop units, and staff here have already made that a priority to minimize the number of rooftop units as well because of the wear and tear that they take. And so we're able to get good, useful life out of our equipment. Next slide, please. So one thing I did want to point out, because I wanted to make sure that we gave credit to the team that's been really looking at different innovations and how they might be used here. We actually do have some geothermal technology with 3 wells down at the South Campus, and they are used for active teaching and for handling, doing air handling for one of the classrooms as well. And at the time that was done back in 2018, they actually had a study that they did to take a look at the feasibility of that for wider applications. And at the time, they looked at Southeast Campus and whether that could be done with some of the soccer fields that are adjacent, as well as ODMC, which is the building where our real estate and facilities folks are up north of Loop 820, and looking at the land adjacent to that. So they reached some conclusions that I'll point out on the next slide, that they did a cost analysis about what the increased cost would be compared to reinvesting in the cooling towers and what that would result in from an energy efficiency standpoint, and also looked at life cycle costs and determined with consultant assistant as well that they would not have better results than our investment in our existing system. I mean, and to some degree, we've got a lot of sunk costs as well into the existing systems. So next slide. The other thing, just because we're talking about energy efficiency, is we wanted to bring to your attention, and most of you are probably aware of the wind turbine that we have down at South Campus as well. That's part of the Energy Technology Center. Again, it's used in practice as well as in teaching, but and then finally, the last slide is to share with you solar panels that are there as well as part of that, the Energy Technology Center as well, which is good. So it gives us an opportunity to evaluate how those tools might be parts of our overall systems. But we thought it might be helpful to see all of that in the context of this particular approval that's part of the progression of redevelopment of the Northwest Campus. And so our recommendation is to move forward with the chiller improvements as described. But I'd be happy to answer any questions, or Walt's available as well.
Questions, discussion?
Mr. Heed.
Yes.
I'm a little bit of the opinion that we're getting the cart ahead of the horse. I think we ought to have the board's work session that's scheduled for October 21st before we get into making some of these commitments. For some time, the board has been asking for a comprehensive game plan for our construction program, and I presume that's what we're going to get on the 21st. I'm also the fact that the board in 2014 adopted some standards. In my limited time on the board, a year, I haven't seen anything about that. And I think the 2014 standards ought to be reviewed. Maybe they have been by staff, I don't know.
So may I offer one qualifier? I don't believe that the board approved the technical standards. I believe it was a discussion with the board at the time about the objectives that were trying to be achieved. So staff has continued to update those and develop them over time. One of the things that's been reassuring to me as well is with all of the consultants that are involved in the design of our Northwest Campus, they said they're as robust as they've ever seen in a public entity in terms of the standards that have been adopted. What the board, I think, weighed in at the time, again, was the outcomes. And we think that that's really appropriate for the workshop to have a discussion around where the board would like to see those move to.
What is the issue here? Why are we talking about this? What is the issue? Are you proposing that we change course and we just start all over again on something else?
I'm proposing the board ought to be in the loop on major decisions where we're spending millions and millions of dollars.
What kind of decisions do you want me to make in regard to the type of technology or this kind of thing that we should be doing?
I think the board has an obligation to vet the decisions that are being made on our behalf. I'm not suggesting that the board needs to become specialist in all of these.
I think you are. I think that's exactly what you're asking me to do, is to go down into some weeds in matters that I do not have any expertise on at all. And it's going to take me a long time to get that kind of expertise. I don't know construction. I don't know how it works. And I rely upon our experts to give us that kind of advice. Why should I spend more time going into these weeds if what we're going to try to do is let's just change what we're doing? I mean, what are you suggesting that we change it to? Other than what we're talking about, gas, what are we talking about? We're talking about a new kind of electricity. What are we talking about? What do you want me to make a decision about is what I'm asking.
So what I would suggest is that the workshop is intended to help the board understand how organizations like this, when they're implementing capital programs, look at sustainability as a goal and how we would set up a framework that would allow us to measure this. The reason staff has moved this particular item forward is because there's been many years of investment in the chiller and thermal energy systems at Northwest that are not a decision that you could easily back up from, and it's staff's recommendation that we're getting good results from having implemented that equipment. And part of it is the timing of the delivery of the bond program. And so by getting this project underway, it facilitates the sequence of events that are scheduled in terms of vacating ADM and starting the demolition program. So it's really, I think it's an important conversation that we'll have at the workshop. I think it'll have to be held within the context of realizing that there are a lot of decisions over many, many years that have been made, that it'll be a balance of deciding if there's some more progressive things that staff is able to do to achieve the objectives that you outline.
Okay, what is your recommendation in regard to delaying this so I can get some more information about what kind of electricity or gas? I mean, did you want us to, like, the question is whether or not we should delay this or not. What is your recommendation?
So staff's recommendation is to move forward this again because it fits into the long-standing development that's happening up at Northwest. But with respect for that, I do think that at the workshop that we're going to spend some time talking about the array of decisions that contribute to our sustainability objectives. And this is just one factor of many. And so our intent will be to help the board identify their goals around that and challenge staff to achieve them. But in this particular instance, it's staff's recommendation to move forward.
Yeah, well, I will oppose any attempt to delay this based on that recommendation.
I'd like to add a couple comments. First of all, I've only been on the board 9 years, but I do not remember ever having the board engaged in any conversation regarding direction in terms of energy efficiency. I don't think we've made any decisions. We haven't been involved in that, to the best of my knowledge, in the last 9 years. Second of all, I wanted to ask a question. Is the Northwest unit, and I'm out of my, and let me just mention, Mr. Greenhill, that we did go out on tour, and I know you couldn't make it, but that was the whole purpose, is to see what else is out there, because I think we have an obligation to our taxpayers to invest all our money, especially when we consider an $830 million bond program, that we invest it wisely, utilizing the best technology that's available today and in the future to reduce our cost and give us the best possible buildings and energy efficiency that we could possibly have. My question is the Northwest chiller system, is that what's called an enhanced system? And maybe Walt needs to answer that.
Probably Walt. And one thing, while he's walking up here, I'll share with you, is that our hope today was also to convey that staff's objective is to do exactly what you've described, which is to reduce energy consumption just for the environment, but also for cost mitigation as well. And they've had good results, and I believe will continue to have good results in partnership with our consultants who are helping us design state-of-the-art systems to achieve that. But I'll turn it over to Walt to tackle your question.
Mr. Heath, could you clarify, I guess, what you mean by enhanced? I mean, I don't quite understand the question.
Yeah, as somebody described to me that there's different kind of chiller systems, and as the old, and then if they become enhanced, that they're a lot more efficient than they used to be. And this Northwest campus, an enhanced system, and what does that mean?
Yes, sir, I would say so. It's chiller technology, like any other, is an evolution, right? So there are 27-year-old chillers in that plant that are the old style. They use the old refrigerant. They don't vary their speed. They're old style. There is another chiller in there that's a newer generation that has a VFD. It can speed up and slow down, enhances efficiency. The latest ones that we've been speccing have what's called magnetic bearing technology, okay? So they actually don't have oil. They don't have lubricant. They ride like a Japanese maglev train. Their bearing rides on a magnetic field. What that does without that lubricant is it lets you do a lot of things that you can't do with it. You can run them very cold. When they run very cold, they run very efficiently. So yeah, it's pretty much, I would say, it's a state of the art in centrifugal chiller technology. Yes, sir.
Well, Mr. Heath, I'm not trying to get this board in the position of making decisions down in the weeds about this detail. But in my year, I guess it's been nearly a year and a half now on the board, we've not had a discussion about the energy efficiency in any detail. We heard more about it in your presentation a while ago than I've seen in the year and a half. I was unaware there were standards adopted in 2014. To the best of my knowledge, I've never seen those. All I'm asking for is that the members of this board, and I'm the newbie, I'll admit that, I think we need to be educated about the major decisions that have been made and are being made. That doesn't mean we're trying to decide what brand of chiller or kind of chiller, or even whether we ought to use chillers or geothermal technology. But I think we need to understand the process that's been used to arrive at the recommendations that are being presented to us. Those are big picture items. If we were in the private sector and we were a business and we were preparing to build a multi-million-dollar building, I assure you that the board of directors would be concerned about the processes being used to determine the recommendations being made by management. That's all I'm suggesting needs to happen here. The board needs to get the big picture and understand the decision-making process. And I don't think that's unreasonable, and I don't think it's getting in the weeds, and I don't think we have to be technological experts in any particular field to probably ratify most of the decisions that have been made. But my experience on this board, other boards, has been it's okay to ask questions and to challenge decisions that have been made and listen to the answers. And if we get good, solid answers and we're comfortable with it, then we move ahead. If we ask questions and we don't get solid answers, then we ask for further investigation and further presentations. So I think there's a level of due diligence and responsibility that falls on the shoulders of the members of this board. And part of it is just ratifying what's being recommended to us by the administration. And part of it is just being comfortable that things are on the right track and good decisions are being made. I do think that these decisions should be delayed until after the workshop on October the 21st. And I respectfully disagree with Mr. Greenhill on that.
Yeah, and I think
Can I speak, Mr. President? The chair usually is a person who coordinates the discussion amongst us. Thank you very much. What is the effect of, is there a material adverse effect of delaying this? That's the question that I have. You have stated, I do support you. I understand what Kenneth Barr is saying. I totally agree with that. But we have been discussing these kinds of technology, energy things now for 4 years or whatever. Is there a material adverse effect for delaying this? You have recommended that we go ahead. So what is the effect if we don't?
So I sat in a 2-hour meeting this morning talking about the very detailed challenges of scheduling the redevelopment of Northwest, and the fact that we have to not only adhere to semester deadlines in the academic calendar, but also manage swing space and construction schedules to align and make sure that we're able to serve the students. It's one of the most complicated things I've ever seen in terms of timing of that. What I've been told by the team is that a delay here sort of puts a delay before the first domino of being able to start some of the demolition that's happening and also moving people out of WADM. And so just every delay compounds, and it's often not a month, it's a semester in some instances. Do I know specifically how they would recover from this? I don't at the moment. My sense is that they run into all kinds of obstacles that we figure out, are there other ways to make up lost time and that kind of thing. We have not had that particular discussion at this point.
I think what Kenneth Barr is, in my profession, this is called a cram down. Do you think, are you cramming this down on us? We haven't had time to make good decisions about this. I think that's what Ken Barr is saying, maybe, that this is a cram down. You're giving us a very limited choice. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If this is material adverse effect, I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and what I would suggest is I think that the workshop is exactly what we should be doing to make sure that as we continue to plan into the future that we've got a deep understanding of what the board's objectives are related to sustainability. What the challenge here is that we've got years and decades of investments that have already happened in a direction that's already occurred that result in a chiller being the appropriate option for this particular improvement at this particular campus. And so that's one of the things as we talk about sustainability, we'll be making the best decisions that we can with new construction as it occurs, but obviously there will be constraints based on prior decisions and systems that have been implemented and adopted and built. So it'll be striking that balance with the board. At the end of the day, I would hope that we are challenged to achieve certain objectives and that there's 100 different decisions about how to get there. That's the one thing I've been hearing over and over from our consultants is that every solution you hear about, there's 3 or 4 potentially different ways to get to the same objective that all have their place, right? And so we've got to figure out what that right combination of decisions is. But in this instance, I think it's really a factor of many, many years of this having been our standard and us still believing that it's the right standard with the advanced technology and chillers and to move forward.
I just feel this is a premature decision, as if a decision was already made to continue with the chiller system. If we're going to give serious consideration to the evaluation of geothermal, solar, et cetera, and we're going to be discussing that in the October 21st workshop, it would seem that we'd want to wait till after that so that we'd have a more informed board in that situation.
That's certainly the prerogative of the board. I would definitely say that. What I will say is that one of the things that you will find, like I mentioned, is that all of those types of technology won't be appropriate or possible depending on the stage of development of different campuses that we possess.
Mr. President, do we have the authority to make a vote at a workshop on whether or not to delay this or not? What is the point of order on this?
Yeah, we're not taking any votes.
Nope. Okay.
Are there any other comments, discussion by any of the other board members?
Mr. Michael Evans.
Yes, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, Michael Evans. Yeah, listen, in regard to energy efficiency, I think the reason why this is important is from my experiences serving on other boards, we have literally saved millions of dollars based upon the kind of systems that we install in our buildings. and I really mean that, MISD in particular. So to hear and to see what other options may be available to us can really save the taxpayers quite a bit of money. And this particular information is readily available. So, I think that the upcoming workshop is going to be fortuitous for and to each and every one of us. And, if the present system that we're using is the best way to go, and from what I'm hearing, there are certain upgrades that have taken place over the years, then it's a good thing. If it's not, then of course, we get the opportunity to at least offer other suggestions. And then I do think that we all have, I know that Dr. Patrick has folks surely in her region, in her sector rather, they really would like to know. I know folks on my end in regard to bonds and those kinds of things, they really do want to know where their dollars are being invested. So it is at least, I think, a good thing for us to be able to tell them, to say to our constituents that, yes, we've explored other possibilities, and, what we're doing now is the best way to go. And we will be able to say that with a straight face. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Diane Patrick here. So what we're talking about is if we delay this decision this month and incorporate the wishes of the board through the workshop and so forth, and what comes out of that, we'll be talking about another month delay at the very least.
Yes.
And so going back to asking that question about the effect of that Mr. Greenhill was raising that issue. So by delaying this decision or tabling it for a month, then you're saying that you feel like that throws off the whole timetable, or is that something you can work with?
So I guess my answer would be it's obviously an incredibly complex program, right? And so every decision that results in a delay along the way has consequences that in many instances they'll be able to overcome, and other instances will result in a month or delay or more delay in actual ability to deliver a system. And the other thing I'll add is I really want to set expectations for the workshop because, again, so many of the decisions and investments have been made over very, very long periods of time. I don't expect that it'll be a discussion around, is there a better technology that I'm not qualified to comment on? I mean, our consultants and our team who've been working on all of this are. For this particular application, it really should be about what do we want to achieve from a sustainability standpoint, and how do we want to convey that to the public and our constituents. And so what you'll find is a lot of organizations decide that they want to figure out how they compare on the LEED's sustainability standards, for example, so that they can communicate that out to the constituents as common language and that kind of thing. So it's sort of a long answer to your question that I do think that there's a schedule consequence of this, but I also want to set expectations in terms of what we're going to be able to accomplish at the workshop.
One other question. We're hiring a design team and engineers to come up with a plan for our new buildings on Northwest Campus and Southeast Campus. If we make this decision at this board meeting, doesn't that preclude them from stepping in and designing something that may be counter to the chiller system? I mean, if we, as an example, and I'm not recommending that we go to a geothermal system, but if that is an option, would this $3 million still be a good investment, or is it something that would be the decision already made, and then now we're too late? Now we're behind the curve again, like we've been before.
So what I would suggest is that the best professional advice we're getting right now is that these enhancements to our existing system is what's the most viable financially and in terms of what we will achieve from an energy saving standpoint. And again, it's because we've got years of investment out there. By replacing this is one component in terms of an energy delivery system across that campus, many of which we've had millions of dollars invested in already, right? So it's with the work of all of those teams and that design team who's been with us for the better part of a year and a half now, working on that. It's part of their recommendations about how we arrived here with this improvement as part of the plan.
Will we be hearing from them on October 21st?
So yes, our consulting teams will be with us at the workshop again, and part of it will be to educate on the array of things that contribute to efficiency and sustainability. This is one little aspect of it. There are hundreds of others that factor into the sustainability objectives of a building, and so or a campus in this instance. And so they'll be helping us walk through a lot of those. Yes.
Mr. Heed, this is Teresa. May I ask a question? Hello?
Go ahead.
Mr. Heed? Oh, yes. Ms. Alanis, I'm going to ask something that's probably a very simple form. Are we saying that the infrastructure that's already there today at that campus, as far as the chillers and heating and airing, keeping this facility cool, it would be more expensive if we were to even consider another option at that? Is that what you're saying?
That is my understanding.
Okay.
And Walt may want to add to that.
Yes, there's new infrastructure that's going to have to be added that will support the new buildings. So yeah, I mean, there's a cost there, but there's also an investment in setting that plan up to serve these buildings. We were planning this, years in advance of expanding the campus at some point in some form or fashion. So those previous decisions went into that. And the standard, again, was chill water, heating water technology. That is our design standard. That is what the design professionals were directed to design to, because it's our standard. So,
okay.
Does that answer it, Teresa?
Yes. So I'm sorry. I was just trying to get down to the basic question, so that it sounds like even if we were to contemplate anything differently, then it would be much more, from listening to you all, it sounds like it's going to be much more expensive for us to do that than to even consider an alternative.
Well, I would just say they're dominoes. They're in order to do the new campus in its new form, some of the chillers will have to go away regardless if we're going to meet our other goals. For example, the LEED Silver resiliency, they have to go away. They have the wrong refrigerant. So there's dominoes, there's effects. So
okay, thank you for that.
Mr. Heed, let me just make one observation. One of the things we learned in Burleson the other day, and I'm not saying we ought to go to a geothermal system, but one of the things that I heard loud and clear was the system they installed probably cost 20 to 25% more than a traditional system. But they feel like the payback was there in about 6 years, I believe was the time. And after 6 years, then they continued to benefit from the geothermal technology. That becomes a sustainability question. It also becomes a question about where we spend our money. What's more important to us? The board hasn't had that discussion. And that's part of what I'm saying the board needs to get comfortable with. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry to drag this out. I know everybody wants to move on, but
yeah. So staff will certainly do what we're asked. What I will say on that is they were building a facility that was a single building, and we've been investing tons of capital improvements across a campus that all integrate and work together in planning for this campus expansion. So it's not a matter of whether we spend a little bit more on one component now to be able to get that payback over time. It's the fact that we would have systems that need to work together and potentially be replaced across the campus. And so that's sort of what we're wrestling with when we talk about this being in many ways a foregone conclusion in terms of the direction that we've headed with how we heat and cool this campus in particular, but there are certainly other applications that may make some sense.
Walt indicated that some of this work would have to be done regardless. In other words, the demolition of some of the chillers. whether or not the decision was made now or then to go with geothermal or whatever, solar, net zero building or that kind of thing. $3 million is a lot of money. Is there any interim situation that we could take a look at to enable this to proceed with demolition that would not incur any expense if we collectively decided to go to a different direction?
So I don't think in an instance like this with a complex system that's possible. And part of what they're doing is trying to get the system in place to serve as we're able to pull those old systems out through the demolition program. And so again, each individual decision can't be made in isolation. It's again part of infrastructure that serves the entire campus. And you saw the list of improvements and investments that have been made in the recent past to prepare for all of this, and miles of piping associated with it and so on that end up being sunk costs. And I still think the professional recommendation of our staff as well as the consultants we're working with is to use the best technology of chillers that are out there as the right solution for this campus.
Would the same apply to Southeast? That's a different system out there.
To get real specific, obviously Southeast isn't as far along in the design, but we've made a major investment there in a cooling tower relocation. It's actually referenced up there. We looked at geothermal as an alternative to a cooling tower installation out there, and it was prohibitive, just cost-wise. It was just, several times what we're going to incur, and life cycle wouldn't permit us in good faith to do that. So it's not as far along in design, but there are these sunk investments that supported the chill water, heating water notion. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, the Southeast is not an enhanced chiller system.
No, it's kind of the same example. In fact, there were Southeast and Southwest, Southeast and Northwest were done at the same time as far as that interim kind of efficiency chiller. Okay, so both need upgrade, and that upgrade will be that state of the art that I talked about. So they're on very similar tracks, but the point is there was this investment made to support that years ago, and then currently the cooling towers are being replaced now. Like, go out there right now and they're being replaced. So it's a continuum, it's motion. So,
but that would support the existing facility.
Yes.
Not necessarily a new building.
No, it was designed to support the new building because the new building's imminent. At least it was when we started. So, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Heath,
this thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ms. Alanis. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to highlight something that Walt said, that as they do their analysis, they do exactly what you described. When he mentioned life cycle costs, they're not just looking at whether there's an increased cost for the installation or the capital investment. They truly are looking at what the long-term operating costs are, because we think that that's equally important. One thing I have found since I've been at the college is that we are fortunate to be in the financial position to be able to make the right investments and buy quality and not have to cut every corner to get, the maximum number of projects done. And so I think the decision making has always been aligned with that, to invest in better so that we can get those long-term payoffs and durability over time.
I think there was a question.
Yes, thank you. This is Teresa Ayala. I just wanted to ask, I really would like to have had a little bit more discussion around this. Like, I know we're going to be having this session coming up next week. And the reason is that it sounds like we have questions. I myself would like to be able to make an informed decision. And part of that is to have knowledge to some extent. Obviously, we're not going to make the decision on which cool chiller and things like that. But I'd like to have an understanding of, what are the options? If this is the only option, why is the only option? Is there something else that we could consider that would work in conjunction with the existing system that we could explore? I mean, I just feel like I don't have that level of knowledge yet to be able to just move forward at this point. But that's just my thought.
Thank you. Any further discussion, comments? Thank you all. If not, we will move on to item 5E, which is consideration and approval of interim service authorization with Jacobs for owner representation services to manage the November 2019 bond projects in the amount of $82,037.
Yes, as we talked about last month, we conducted a request for qualifications earlier this year to select an owner's rep to guide us through this process. And part of that is because we simply don't have the capacity to deliver a capital program at this scale compared to what we've been doing internally before. Jacobs was selected. They started their sprint start earlier this summer under a smaller contract. We have been negotiating their 5-year engagement to help us throughout the life of the bond program to make sure that we come in on time and under budget. And that will be coming back to you next month. We wanted to get through the workshop as well to have that discussion. And this will continue their engagement until we get to that larger contract.
Questions, discussion? Being none, we'll move on then to, I thank you, Ms. Alaniz. Move on to item 6, report of the Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Heed. The only thing I want to draw attention to you in open session here is the upcoming facility projects and IT projects that you see in 6A and 6B. So those are for your perusal of what's coming up in the future. Our briefing that was scheduled will be moved to closed session. And so with that, I'm finished.
The board will now conduct a closed meeting in order to discuss matters permitted by the following sections of Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. A, Section 551071, consultation with attorney, legal issues regarding any item listed on today's district work session meeting agenda. B, deliberations regarding real property. C, deliberations on personnel matters. D, deliberations on security devices or security audits. And the board may reconvene in open session and act on any of these items listed in executive session agenda in accordance with Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. We are now going into closed session. We are now reconvened in open session. And if there's no further comments, discussions, then we'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you.